Ladies and gentlemen, this week's SEO and Booga podcast in full show business mode, featuring the dulcet tones of Mr. Ezio Lunade.
Hello.
All husky and growly, and me, the letdown.
You're not a letdown. What's that?
That's my porno name now.
Letdown.
The letdown. I walk on set. 2 minutes later, I'm going, sorry.
How have you been?
Same.
He's here, look. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, Damen und Herren. We have a
special guest.
Okay, here we go. All right.
Oh, I can hear you good. I can hear you good.
My God, man! I thought I'd run out of stuff to wank to, but no. And seeing your
baby
smudge up there, man, good stuff. This is premium content. This is.
Do y'all actually put video on this podcast?
Well, we put it. We eventually it goes on my Patreon page at first, and then eventually I put it on the page. But mainly the podcast is an audio podcast. So if they can wait for the Ezio Facebook page, or perhaps I'll send you the video if you want to share it.
I just wasn't sure if I ought to stand up and get it out for Booga there, because I know it's been locked down for a long time.
Sorry, you're going to have to stand back to do that, because I don't want to
You'd be surprised. One of the selling points is it's comfortable for most people.
Listen. What's happened here? For those of you on listening to the podcast, I think we've gone completely insane. What's happened? We've been joined by a good friend and wonderful musician, one of the most intelligent. You'd never guess it, but one of the most intelligent people, possibly that lived off Mill Road for a while. That's saying something. And
just ask a few of the people on Twitter who call me a libtard. Ask them what they think.
I was thinking, I put together. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce. Is this the show bit entrance? He's now tap dancing down a sweeping staircase in with a cane and a top hat, ladies and gentlemen. And it's Mr. John Wheeler. John Wheeler. The creative force. He is actually. John is in the studio now and has just gone over to the old Joanna. Fine music, multi-instrumentalist, and is actually Hayseed Dixie, the creative force behind many things, including that. How are you, John?
It's still going. But if I'm honest, just about bored right out of my skull for the most part. If it wasn't for having some music to work on, but the problem is that we can't really do it together. I've had a few people say, "Oh, well, email me some files over," but
it's not the same.
It ain't the same. You got to be sitting in the room with each other. That's what I miss. I'm missing the opportunity to get together and do the stuff together with people.
Yeah, when you get together with people, something bigger than the sum of its parts happens. And
if you don't suck, yes. I mean, that's what you're aiming for.
Yeah, well, sometimes you suck and sometimes you don't. I think that happens to everybody. But if everybody is in the right mood at the same time, something quasi-religious happens, I think.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean? And it's something wonderful. So,
do you know who said? I know this is going to be. There was on. I only caught a little bit of it. Graham Norton show, which is absolutely fucking awful. But he was interviewing Arsene. It can be funny, but he had Arsene Wenger on it, who basically somebody brought into a certain sense of intellectualism to football, and he basically said the same thing, that when a group of individuals get together, they can create something that is art. Doesn't matter what it is, but if everyone can come together and do that. Right. And then Graham Norton started asking about why he banned ketchup from the dressing room. So that one little pearl of wisdom was then smacked down and turned into, has Thierry Henry got a big old bill or something? But you're right. Yeah, you're right. It's that thing of when you get people, there's the electricity. It's the same thing as gigs. You can have the same people, you can have the same setup, but there's going to be that night, and that night, whatever you do is golden.
And that's the reason that it's the reason that this whole streaming gigs thing doesn't really work, in my view. And we haven't tried to do it even. One, because my band, we all live in different countries. Like, I mean, I think you guys are separated right now too, right? Except
Yeah,
in Germany most of the time.
Yep.
So it's like,
We
we're
did
not
one
in the same place.
We did one before Christmas together, which was really good. But even that was weird because you have to imagine an audience watching you because there's no energy coming back from a camera.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean. I mean, from an audience point of view, I think, well, I've been doing music for so long that actually I'm kind of one of the worst as far as not going out and supporting a lot of it, because I spend so much of my time doing it that when I'm at home, I usually want to do something else, like play with my kids or ride a bike or something. But here lately, the last several months, I found myself kind of looking up old concerts on YouTube and stuff and watching some of that. I would rather watch an old concert of some band I like in front of an audience of 500 to 5,000 people than to sit there and watch some live stream they're doing now, just looking at a camera. It all feels like a telethon to me. I mean, I don't know if you had those in Britain, but back in America, we used to have these telethons, right? Where they'd be raising money for something. And sometimes it's a worthy cause,
I felt the same way until I had done a couple on my own and actually found them in some ways because you have to remember there's a lot of people that want live music as well. And I know it's not the same experience for us. We don't have the audience to feed back off. We don't have the lights. We don't have the big sound. They don't have the night out. They don't get dressed up. They don't arrange babysitters. So it is a different thing. And if you approach it like that, I've started it with trepidation and thinking it was very strange. But in some ways, when people all over, they're literally all over the world sometimes, they give you feedback and they've enjoyed it. And you can sort of bring a little bit of the flavor. It's not the same thing, but you have to approach it in a different way. You have to approach it like, you're playing to each person individually in their living room, really. That's the way I feel it, like you're singing to them. Yeah, it's a different skill. It's not the same. I mean, I looked at old footage as well, at the junction of me and Booga playing. And it seems so weird to see so many people, their arms in the air, all close together. It's made me really sad and miss those things, the intimacy and contact with people. Really.
But in saying that, their arms were in the air because we were holding them hostage.
We were.
Yeah, exactly.
They weren't applauding or joining in. It was just we had them surrounded. And but no, it's like methadone for a heroin addict. That's all that's
I suppose.
I mean, when we did the thing, what was funny is we'd finish a song to silence, and that usually means you're either going to get your head kicked in, or there's no one in the room.
Yeah, everybody left. Exactly.
Yeah,
it turns out there was no one in the room.
And there was and it's that. It's just there's 8 cameramen and a sound guy and all the rest of it, and it just I know that knocked you into a bit of a. Ezio was kind of going.
I'll get very.
It was a Pavlovian response of. I was waiting for you to
go.
Well, what the fuck do you want then? Why aren't you clapping? What the fuck's wrong with you?
What makes it intimidates me? Yeah, sorry.
It would just probably make me remember what it was like for the first 10, 15 years of my music career when I did mostly play to nobody,
We still do occasionally, trust me.
Every now and then, yeah.
We still do.
It happens.
If you can excuse me for a minute, I'm going to get my cup of tea. So talk amongst yourselves.
I mean, especially if we play a gig somewhere like the south of France, we might well play to an empty room too.
Well, we do it. We do it all the time. I mean, we get no media at all, be it radio, hardly any press, word of mouth. So in some towns, you can get a lot of people. You can go an hour up the road and get nobody. So, it keeps your feet firmly on the ground. You don't get any delusions of.
Well, I mean,
yeah, and you have to feel like, and you have to play each one the same, really.
We try to anyway. There's something I've always been annoyed by, and you probably feel the same way. But when I've been at a show and there would be a small audience, and the guy, the front guy, or whoever does the talking for the band, walks on the stage. So where is everybody tonight? And you think, why are you bitching at the people who are there? They're the ones who turned up. Don't bitch at them about
Absolutely.
it. They're the ones who were there.
I mean, it's been pointed out to me. I very often play much better when there's a few people and when there's a lot, because I feel like if I lose these few, I've really got nobody. Exactly. So I have to keep these really sweet. This is where I'm starting from here, and these have to go home and not feel, because they feel awkward enough for you as it is. So if you make them feel bad as well, that's it. You've lost them forever. They've got to be, despite the fact they're in an empty room, they got to feel like it was a special night and privileged to have been there. That's how they got to feel at the end of it.
That's right. No, I agree. And I think that's a harder show to do. I mean, it's
terrible.
It's actually really easy to go out and play to 2,000 or 3,000 people who are all there to see you. I mean, they're already on your side.
You can't do anything wrong at that point. You can't do anything wrong. You've got to be a real dickhead to fuck that up.
That's what I mean. Yeah. That pretty much takes care of itself. But to walk out to sort of a place that holds 300 and there's 60 people sitting around in the corners, that's hard. That's work there. But anybody can play Sold Out Shepherd's Bush Empire. Anybody can do that. That's pretty simple. Just go out and play your songs. They'll all sing along. They'll clap. I mean, just basically don't talk about Brexit and you're cool.
You've actually suffered with that, haven't you? You've actually, I don't know. I was listening to something else you were saying that I was reading a post because we're friends on Facebook that you've lost a percentage of your audience through criticizing Brexit. Would you say that?
Sure. Probably about a quarter of them.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you've voted with your feet because you've relocated to Germany with the family and everything, haven't you? You've properly relocated.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, I mean, everybody has their priorities, right? And I'm not going to criticize the way that somebody ranks their hierarchy of priorities because everybody's individual in that way. But for me, the freedom to move around, and some of this might be because I'm from a federal republic, United States, 50 different states that are semi-autonomous, that are more autonomous than people like to think sometimes. I mean, it depends on what the subject is. They're certainly not as autonomous as the sovereign nations that make up the European Union, but the states in the U.S. do have a fair amount of autonomy, again, depending on what it is. I mean, like things like California set their own emission standards for cars and, that kind of stuff. So I guess because I come from a place like that where most of the states are roughly the size of European countries, the idea that you would need a work permit to leave the island of Great Britain would feel to me like needing a work permit to go from Florida to Alabama. I mean, because the entire island upon which sits Wales, Cornwall, England, and Scotland is roughly the size of Florida. If you flip it upside down. Driving from Aberdeen to Brighton is about like driving from Miami to the Valdosta, Georgia, which is on the I've made both drives many times, about 9-10 hours depending on traffic. About the same. So I mean, the idea to me that I wasn't so much worried about me. I'm 51 years old. I can kind of walk between the raindrops, but my daughters, who are now 11 and 9, but when the vote happened, were significantly younger. They didn't choose to lose their rights to live, work, be in 27 other countries. Just because a bunch of people voted for that, it depends, I guess, on because my wife's parents, who are English, were talking about this, saying that they thought I was being anti-democratic. And I said, well, no, I don't believe that democracy means that all of us have to submit to mob rule. I mean, I'm a proponent of federal democracies where you have constitutional protections in order to protect the minorities from the majority. The majority doesn't need protection. The majority is already, the majority. So what you got to protect in any situation, I think, are the people who are not the majority. That's my view of what a democracy is. Direct democracy, that's something quite different, and I think is generally usually a pretty bad idea. I mean, I spent years trying to study up on, say, the pros and cons of the Brexit issue, just beyond rights of movement, which was the big one for me. But I can understand why it wouldn't be for someone else. But anyway, I tried to educate myself on it. I think guys like me and you as well, who travel around a lot, probably have a better perspective on we do, but what really why it hurt me so much, I think, was the fact that I came from an Italian family. I was born in England as a result of immigration. My parents actually met. My mother came when she was 17 years old to Britain on her own to join her sister to be a seamstress in Norwich. And my father, who'd been a partisan, ran away because they wanted to do national service after he'd been in prison and captured by Germany, done all sorts, and he wasn't going to do that anymore. And he came to Britain, and they met from a similar region because they had things in common. And all my life in Britain, I was aware that there was this opinion of this exceptionalism, that they did think they were better. Every time a football commentary would come on,
and the Italians would be like devious and cheating. And they implied the fact that they were more upright and fair and better was all the time. And in the 70s, a playground in the Fens, when you're the only foreigner, when people spoke, there was a little sneer in their face. And when I moved to Cambridge, that sneer disappeared. And the only time I saw that sneer again is after Brexit on the faces of people. This kind of bitter anger that I don't know where it comes from, this almost jealousy. The reason why football supporters smash up a nice town square in Spain because they feel resentment. Oh, they lied to us. Look how nice it is. Oh, we have to break it. I don't know. And this is the fact that this part of this country I love, this small faction of these fantastic people in Britain got the upper hand is the thing that hurt me the most, I think.
Well, it goes to show you how easy it is to incense a population, because, I mean, I first went to Britain in 2003. That's the first time I'd ever been there at the age of 33, after having grown up in the American South. I mean, Nashville's got some pros and cons, but let me tell you, I don't miss the place. I mean, I was 10 years old when they mixed our black and white schools together. Before I was 10, I only went to school with white people. And when they mixed them together in 1980, this was, it wasn't pretty. I mean, I think less than half of the people were really resistant of it, but the less than half that were resistant were around a third or so. And I mean, there were the parents of people I'd grown up with that I thought were my friends standing in the parking lot waving Confederate flags and signs saying separate but equal and segregation forever. I mean, this kind of stuff is not some picture in a history book to me. I lived through this crap. And I basically learned how to fight that following year because I made friends with a couple of black kids, and some of these rednecks would walk by and say, "Why are you hanging out with that nigger?" I'd say, "You can't call him a nigger." And then we'd have it, you know? So when I first came to Britain,
it's that sneer again.
Racism, but oh yeah. But
it's that nasty sneer. You know that face I'm talking about, don't you?
Oh yeah. It's in a slightly different context, but it was
but it's context. The same thing. It was the
way they were looking at my black friend while he's introducing me to Marvin Gaye, and I'm trying to turn him on to Hank Williams, and they're looking at me like, yeah, it's that look that you're talking about.
That
what
sneer, am I doing? That angry kind of, kind of that mealy-mouthed, mean, just cruelty that cruelty I don't know.
What sums it up.
And people aren't born with that. That's put in them. People are not born, and nobody's innocent of that. I remember coming when my mum was working. I had to go to my aunt's. So there was a brief period of time my aunt was staying in Peterborough, and after school I'd have to go there because my mum would finish late. And I remember bringing a black boy, Gareth, his name was, home to play after school because we met. So come around mine. Yeah, and then he kind of went a bit weird. And then he left really early. And I didn't understand why he left. I felt a bit kind of disappointed because I really liked him and wanted to hang out with him. I mean, I was 6 or 7. I don't know how old I was. But then my aunt told me off for bringing a black boy home. And I remember thinking, how fucking stupid are you? I remember thinking how wrong that was then. And my cousins must have had a completely different upbringing to me because I wasn't brought to think. I just didn't occur to me. And the injustice of it was clear. You know.
I mean,
Booga said it for ages. Sorry, he's still there.
No. I was just going to say, going back to the original Brexit thing, because trust me, I've got plenty to talk about when it comes to colour.
I'm sure, man. I'm sure,
going back to the Brexit thing, I don't know about you, John. Ezio and I have spoken about this at great length, but I haven't heard a proper, well thought out argument for Brexit that hasn't gone beyond the emotional. It hasn't gone beyond just the rhetoric of 2 world wars and 1 World Cup, doo-dah. And
essentially, yes.
And I think it has to do with identity. I know that you were saying that you've got abuse on Twitter and that you found your following. I personally would just like somebody to go, I'm a Brexiteer and I think it's good for everyone because, and I haven't heard it. No one has said it. Well, the fishermen said we wanted Brexit because of the fish, because we wanted our own fish. Now they can't sell their fish. It was stuff that's so obvious, but was never put forward.
But I was asking this
a bit like Trump was the same thing. It was a manipulation of feelings and fear. The Trump thing came around. You know, a lot of it is to do with the fact they had, going back to what we were talking about in a minute ago, was having a black president for 8 years. And
Trump is a backlash to that. That's exactly what
Do you think so? Do you think so?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's what that was. And there is a backlash to what? And I don't know what the backlash is here, because England seems to be the perineum between the East and the West.
It's a fucking brilliant country. I mean, this is
but we've also got the worst of it, because, and again, if you break down the demographic of the vote, we've only got this Tory leader came into power on the back of a percentage of Tory members. So Boris Johnson only became the leader of the Tory party, ergo the prime minister, because the Tory party members. And then there was an election which is based a load of it on, you see it all again based on lies, which all this stuff, and it's all coming through now. And then people.
Well, the US and the UK both desperately need proportionate representation, because this whole winner-take-all thing prevents there from being any viable third, fourth, fifth parties. I mean, what I'm seeing over here in Germany is there's like 8 or 9 parties in most of the different federal states that are going to have to share power, and about 8 or 9 of them are going to have representations in parliament, including the AfD, or the right-wing.
It would smash It would smash the Tory stranglehold.
But because the Tories don't have an outright majority. No,
they don't have an outright majority. But they would, they're held together. Because make no mistake, there's 3 or 4 parties involved in the Tory party. There's all kinds of interests in there, from the right to the quite, liberal.
Dominic Grieve and Jacob Rees-Mogg don't have much to say to each other.
No,
no, I agree with you.
And of course, let's when we say this, both America and Britain were winners, and the losers have a certain amount of freedom, which they made sure they've got after becoming the losers in that great war.
Right. I mean, here's a lot of why I chose Germany to come to for my kids, because it was about my kids. It was about protecting my kids' rights and them not losing their rights after this Brexit that they didn't choose to lose. But when that happened, me and my wife started talking about. My wife's English. I mean, y'all know her, but I mean, for anybody who's listening who doesn't know her, she grew up.
That sounds a bit suspicious, actually.
Yeah, well,
y'all know.
Oh no, well, actually, you knew her before I met her, man.
Oh I was the one who said avoid him. He's American.
Yeah,
they're all like
good, and he's a musician.
And he's a musician. That was one of the plus columns. It was that your giant penis, and it was the negative column was he's an American. So he's incredibly talented. He's charming.
He flashed around a few packets of nylons.
He turned up with a bar of chocolate, and he played a couple of Hank Williams tunes on his banjo. And he was I was just jealous, because I would have gone for myself, but Catherine, her womanly wiles just got me out of the game. But sorry, you were saying, yes.
No, I was just saying we talked about this a bunch, and we said, this would also be a good opportunity for our kids to do something that we never got a chance to do, which is grow up essentially bilingual, learn another language while they're young enough to internalize it. I've gotten to where I can kind of start a good fight in Deutsch, but it'll always be like a second language for me that's just kind of riding on the top of my first one. Whereas the kids might be able to get it where they can
I'm sure
actually, think in both languages and kind of inhabit them both. Then we ask ourselves, okay, which of the European languages are useful? Spanish, French, Italian, German, essentially. I mean, I like the Netherlands and Denmark very much. They're 2 of my favorite countries, but Danish in particular is a ridiculously difficult language to learn, and only 4 million people speak it. And
you sound, people who do speak it, I've been there. You sound like a caveman. You do sound like it's like, it's a caveman language.
And plus as well, John, it's when you start going black metal, then you can go down.
Well, that's
the point where you go. At the point you're never going to go black metal. Let's face it. So there's no point in that.
He might, he might. It might be a twang.
One of my.
What are you talking about?
I mean, but people don't listen. What we should do is actually explain about John, because rather than go on about politics, we're going all day about this thing, and we've gone over it so many times in bars and pubs and stuff, and we're all upset about it. But it comes from But we should be explaining that John is one of the top multi-instrumentalists I know. I mean, there's nothing you don't play. Is there really? I mean,
no woodwinds, man.
How self-centered are you?
Blow or suck. I just can't deal with things you got to blow and suck.
I mean, on Facebook, you got a fully mic'd up, proper nice drum kit, piano. You've just done
Hold your ears. I can't even bend a note on the damn thing. I've been working on it for 25 years.
That's the only thing I can do on
it. You must be in contact with your inner lesbian before you can bend a note on.
I'd like to be. I wish I could be. Now, anyway, I'll finish the thought. We decided on Germany above France or Spain or Italy. Although Italy was a difficult one because me and my wife both really like Italy. I think the language is pretty useful. It's close to Spanish. They're almost mutually intelligible. Latin language is always good to know to get you around the world. But then we saw what was going on with that. Mainly, we thought a lot of the endemic corruption in Italy is something that we would both probably have trouble dealing with on a day-to-day level. It's okay when you're on holiday because it doesn't really touch you. Maybe I would have just gotten used to it and it would have been fine. I've known some people who have moved to countries where corruption is kind of the way things roll. And sometimes they say that once you get accustomed to it, it's an easier way to deal with things than the more Northwestern European way where everything's codified because you can't get nothing done. There's so much bureaucracy where at least you go someplace.
It really depends on where you are in Italy. It varies. It does vary which part of Italy you're in. I mean, if you're in the north, there's always some. The other thing is there's on every culture, and I've noticed this because I'm in Germany as well. Every culture has rules that you don't know. Yeah, like exactly. In England, there's rules when you go to the pub that you have to know to conform and how to behave. And you know, when I going back to Brexit, people want a flat Earth, want to be on a level playing field. And listen, if you stuck, you know, the most skillful Brexiter in the world in the middle of Italy to order a coffee, he'd get his coffee after everybody else had got it before it. Sure. Like, there's nous involved in Italy. There's a language that you don't know that isn't just words. There's how you do things is, I would imagine, very tough. The bureaucracy in Italy would drive you nuts. If you think it's bad in Germany, in Italy, it's just awful. One thing that my parents really loved about Britain was at that time when they came, that if something was your right, it was yours. You didn't have to fight or lie or pay or corrupt or doff your cap, because Italy was a feudal country until the Second World War, really. Sure. There were farmers, you know, there were people paying half their crops. They didn't have an industrial revolution like they did in Britain and Germany. You know, Italy's gone from the Middle Ages to... to the 21st century, practically.
Well, it was Garibaldi in 1871 that united all the different kingdoms, right? So before 1871, you got to go back to the Roman Empire.
That's why we don't feel Italian. The only time why football's so important, the only time we feel Italian is when the football's on. Otherwise, we have campanilismo. You're attached to the campanile is your bell tower, your parish, basically, and everybody else is worthless. They could be Chinese. You know,
and the sad thing about that is, because what Garibaldi did was staggering, to unite a desperate collection of fiefdoms and areas, and he's only celebrated by one of the most average biscuits you can possibly get.
Yeah, that's true.
You know what I mean? It's really sad that they go. I like a Garibaldi, but it's a divisive biscuit. It should be a unifying biscuit.
There is a chain of...
should be like a chocolate hobnob, the most unifying biscuit in the world. But it's not. It's with raisins, and some people don't like the raisins. Garibaldi was a genius. If his name should have been Count Hobnob and Count Chocolatey Hobnob, and I believe Italy would be one unified country who will just win World Cup after World Cup.
Most people in America only know him because it's a brand of frozen pizzas that you buy in the supermarket. If you say you want a Garibaldi, you mean a frozen pizza from the supermarket. And then it becomes controversial because they were one of the first frozen pizza groups in America back in the 80s to start introducing the pineapple ham Hawaiian pizza, which has its own controversy. Should there not be pineapple on a pizza? I say if it involves pork, there should be. If it involves beef, maybe not.
Listen,
I'm
not going there.
With you,
I'm not going there. I'm not going to even discuss that. I'm not even discussing.
Should you put pineapple on a pizza?
Because you don't put fucking pineapple on a pizza. And the other thing you don't put on a pizza, and that I've seen in Britain that turns my stomach, I want to kill everybody, set fire to everything, is chicken. You do not put fucking chicken on a pizza.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. That's disgusting.
Why can you put chicken on pizza?
Might as well put tuna fish on your ice cream sundae if you're going to do that. I agree with you.
Well, there is the argument, cuisines evolve, and that I personally, if I see an Hawaiian and it's flat and it's got bread in it, it's not an Hawaiian. Hawaiian is somebody who lives on the island. It's the worst thing in the world. But, there is the argument, and I am playing devil's advocate here, that cuisines develop, and especially in parts of your homeland in California, where there were some of those kitchens that were doing weird and exotic stuff to put on a pizza. I don't know. All I'm saying is we can't be so close-minded about such things.
Well, you say that.
You say that.
But I would not, if I could help myself, I will not I will not have pineapple or chicken on a pizza, let alone a curry, because there was before the time you were in San Diego. Before you came to England, there was a place on Mill Road called Curry Pizza, and that's what they did.
Yeah, but I remember.
I was going to say, there's a place in San Diego that was a Mexican-Indian fusion restaurant. It's the only place in my life I've ever seen a chicken tikka masala burrito.
Well,
it was horrific. I couldn't eat it.
Yeah, but the thing is, I'm very. I'm really schizophrenic. I'm very Italian in some ways, in that with Italian food, I'm very traditional. But what I love about being in Britain, and I've realized in Germany just how British I am, I can't avoid it. I miss things about Britain. Mm-hmm. And I've got VPNs going so I can see the BBC. I am very British in some ways. More British when I'm outside, just as I'm more Italian when I'm outside of Italy. But the one thing I like is the fact that you do mix things around in England with food and stuff. In Italy, it's too traditional. It's too conservative, but it's of a high standard. But I remember on Norfolk Street for a brief period of time, there was a German guy called Horst who lived in Cambridge, who married a Thai girl, and he used to do currywurst on the market square. And they actually set up a German stroke Thai restaurant, which how that works, I don't know how you do German and well,
there's British pub food and Thai mixed together in a lot of places in Britain. So yeah, I mean, Sauerbraten and Tom Yum. I mean, I don't know.
one of my.
I like both, but they don't go together.
No, I agree with you. Lemongrass on cumin seed. I don't know.
One of my deep-seated theories about the British Empire is that they only invaded the tastier nations.
Well,
they went to Hong Kong, Cantonese. They went to India. They didn't go, let's invade, I don't know, where's that place in Scandinavia where they have like the shark meat that they keep in the ground for months on end?
That's part of Norway, what they call it. So they bury the fish for a year and it ferments and rots. Yeah.
We're going to invade there. No, they went, we fancy a chicken tikka. We better enslave a few 100 million people and, treat them with racist disgust for much of their lives, and so we can have something to eat on a Friday night.
Well, you know what, and probably the fact that you can go into any place in Amsterdam and you can have Indonesian cuisine, which I think is the best of the sort of Pacific Rim stuff. It justifies the whole history of colonialization.
Yeah, exactly. I
mean, it's the same as there's a lot of people. I was actually taught by this this was the end of religion to me. Actually, it was right around the same time they were desegregating
chicken tikka burrito.
Well, no, I had this.
There is no God. There is no God.
Well, no, this was before that. A Sunday school teacher told me that, all these black people in America need to be glad that their ancestors were enslaved, because just look at how much better off they are now than they would have been if we'd have left them in Africa.
Wow.
This was the prevailing thinking of the time. It was the justification for slavery.
Oh, no.
It was right at that point when I said,
I remember.
You know what? I'm done with you people, man.
I remember being in primary school and sitting on coconut matting and being showed slideshows of African tribes and how we went there and made everything much better in Africa and all the rest of it.
It was the same justification for the British Empire. I think it was a justification for slavery in America. What I was going to say is, to the point of what's wrong with both of the countries, I think Britain has never made its peace with its own history.
Absolutely.
In the same way that America has never. And I think Booga was correct when he said it's because both of them won the war. It's not that the Germans are innately better people. They're not. And they're racist here. I've met a few of them. But because of getting their asses trounced in 2 world wars, they've sort of had to accept it. I mean, you drive up and down the Autobahn and you see signs to stop off at Dachau and Buchenwald and all these different concentration camps. They kind of can't really hide it.
And
they have to just put it out there.
And Britain was never, and neither country was ever occupied. Even the ones that, once you're occupied by foreign troops, you start to value peace a lot more. And you would do everything to protect it. And so
the last time that foreign troops landed on U.S. soil was 1813.
Yeah.
That is the last time. That was the British Army when the War of 1812 happened. That is the last time foreign troops.
You ask a British person, they don't even know that they were ever at war with America. They don't even know. British people.
Well,
they got a special relationship.
Depending on what you want to call it, the last time the island of Britain was successfully invaded was 1066. Depending on what you want to call it.
William of Orange. There's loads of it.
Yeah, exactly.
There's loads of them.
So. Well, there are, but the last time that a military force occupied the island of Britain, depending on what you want to call it. I mean, you could say when Henry VII came back from France with his army and put Richard III in that car park in Leicester, but that wasn't like occupying the whole country with an army, right? So, I mean, I think
it's this obsession. I don't.
Inherent.
Yeah,
well,
but
that's where the "we're better than everybody else" stuff comes from, in my view. Is they've never had to sort of suck it up. You learn a lot from defeat. Sometimes you learn more from defeat than you learn from victory.
Well, also because the winners write the history and they point out all the shit you did, and so you learn a bit of humility. Whereas if you always win, you don't get to see it.
That's right.
I mean,
we've never made peace in America with slavery.
My son did A-level history. I mean, I did history in at school level, and you learned about arrow in the eye, Henry Tudor, witch wife. You didn't learn anything else. My son did it at A-level. And he came back and says, that King Leopold of Belgium was a bastard in Africa. I said, he was a bastard in Africa. What do you think this lot did?
Yeah, exactly.
Why aren't they teaching you that?
Well, if you want to, context of this is what's happening with Hong Kong. Because it's really not understood that Hong Kong was simply under British rule because the East India Company needed somewhere to send the heroin, the opium that it was growing in India, thus depriving Indians of a food source, to get it into China so they could make money. And that was why Hong Kong was British. But no one knows that because it's not taught in schools. It's because it's not nice. Queen Victoria, she brushed her teeth once a week. That's the kind of shit that we get told. Whereas the actual history, HSBC being El Chapo's #1 laundering bank that comes from it's no context.
It was started by opium dealers. That's totally right. You're right.
They're drug dealers. All it is, that were a bunch of drug dealers that got a whole country hooked on morphine. But that doesn't bode well into the Towers of London, blah 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 blah, 2 world wars and 1 World Cup, same stuff. Doesn't get taught until you get to somewhere near a degree. I didn't do history.
Do you even get taught it then, really? Do you really even get taught it properly then? I'm not sure.
Well, I don't know. I'm guessing. But I was bored as hell at school with history. And I've learnt more history in trying to understand what's going on today and trying to contextualize stuff. Absolutely. Because especially with something like Brexit, going back to that, or even with my mum. My mum, born in Kenya, she grew up under an occupying regime. That's what I think now. It wasn't the British civilizing, it was an occupying regime. And she was fully brainwashed because she went through the whole system. And she still, at the age of 73, still finds it staggering that there are people in this country who are hungry. And there are people in this country who can't work. And because she was taught from the minute she could possibly understand anything that this was the golden city. This was the golden country. And this is stuff, until you get to understand how things work, you don't actually ever truly understand where we are now. And this is where we are now. We are at a point where the shit's going to really hit the fan. The pandemic has stopped certain political truths which are now happening or seeing in Ireland that come about.
That's a fucking nightmare.
Through people just
well, they've restarted the troubles. They've restarted the troubles.
Oh yeah, but the people. This is it. It goes back down to why did that 1/3 of the voting population in this country think that this would be a good thing for us in a globalized.
Well, they probably weren't aware of it. They didn't think there were the consequences. And when the day after the referendum, we were saying, what about Ireland? Project Fear. It's all Project Fear. We were pointing this stuff out straight away. What's going to be better now? Well, we're free to do. Free from what?
Free to do what? Well, no, I mean, I've asked to Booga's earlier point from way earlier. I've put this all over social media. I've said, because my sound man and my mandolin player are both British. And the guy who's made our T-shirts for us for the last 15 years is down in Cornwall. You know, I used to get all of my European stock from him. Right now, I'm only going to get UK stock from him because I can't get stock to sell in Europe and take it across customs borders and pay customs on it. I just get a German company to make the stuff for the EU. But I've asked many times, you know, what has my T-shirt maker down in Cornwall gained from Brexit? What have my mandolin player and my sound man gained? Now that I might have to get them work permits to bring them here. I can tell you a lot of what they've lost. What have they gained? So I've asked everybody, what have my two daughters gained that's going to be any kind of compensation for what we know that they will be losing if I stayed in Britain? And just like Booga was saying, nobody has been able to give me an answer for that. And I mean, I got pretty aggressive about it before we moved down here to Germany about 1.5 years ago, because I felt like it was really an act of violence that was being perpetrated against my family. I felt like the idea of stripping them of movement rights in 27 other countries was an act of violence against me. That's how it felt to me. Me as the protector, the father of my children, it felt to me like there was violence being done to me by this. Now, I'm not saying that everybody who voted for Brexit was intending to violently assault me. They didn't even think about that, but that's how it felt to me.
Well, I'm sure they weren't.
But I got pretty aggressive about it. I got up on stage and I said this kind of stuff. I said it every single show. I didn't say, you know, anybody voted for Brexit, leave. I didn't say that. I said, I want somebody to come up to me after the show. I ain't hard to find. I'm going to be over at the merch table and I'm going to be signing whatever you want to sign. Somebody tell me what my daughters are going to gain from this. I can tell you what they're going to lose. Somebody tell me what they're going to gain. And don't say sovereignty. That's meaningless. Say something concrete. Nobody ever could. But nobody ever actually confronted me personally about it either. A couple of drunk people, you don't love it, leave it. Well, yeah, whatever. I used to hear that shit in America too. But mostly what I got was the occasional, I say occasionally, it wasn't that occasional. I got the email or the message on our Facebook site or something saying, we used to like your band, but now we're never going to come see you again. I'm like, man, I don't care. I've always thought it was awfully odd when people would threaten a middle-aged person who's had a 20-year career with, it's like people going on John Cusack's Twitter thing and saying, I used to like your movies, but I'm never going to say anything again because of what you said about Trump. He doesn't fucking care. Let me assure you, he's not going to notice, you know? I've always found that really. You know what I mean? That people threaten me with, well, I'll just remove my custom because you said something I don't like.
Well, that's their right. That's absolutely their right.
It is, yeah. Okay.
That's absolutely their right to do that.
But don't call to tell me that you're gone. If you're my ex-girlfriend, don't keep coming back to tell me that you've left.
No, I mean,
I've actually walked off a stage and given a woman £10 for her ticket and told her to fuck off in the middle of the gig. Because because you're just ruining it for everyone else.
Do you remember that time at the Logo in Hamburg where there was a woman being really obnoxious right in front of me?
Oh, yeah.
I went to put my hand in my pocket to give her the money to fuck off home, and I got my money out. And just as I was about to hand it, do you remember the guy behind her punched her on the side of the head, knocked her out?
Yeah.
That saved me like, 15 Deutschmark, I think at the time. It was pre-Euro.
So Logo's been there that long. That's the same place we usually play in Hamburg.
The Logo's been there since Christ knows when. I mean, I think
since the Beatles played there.
Kind of. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
There is a pterodactyl that still lives in its roof.
I'll never forget sound checking. Look, I have terrible eyes. You know, I've got short-sighted, and in dark light, I can see very, very badly. And there was a very attractive kind of Oriental girl behind the bar. And at the time, I was kind of, while I was sound checking, I thought she looked really nice, and I kind of made a few eyes at her and played, and then
started singing "Loving You" by Minnie Riperton to her.
Loving you. Anyway, and then I walked over in this kind of dim sound.
Hang on, hold that thought. Just one second. Wait. I want to give you some background for it.
It's a major seventh. It's a major seventh.
It's a major seventh.
All right, go ahead.
There's going to be a delay here. Cool.
Trying to hold back this feeling for so long. And if you feel
sorry, John, I've got to stop you. I've got a letter from Marvin Gaye's lawyers. They want royalties. Hang up the Zoom. They're going to sue us.
Let's get it on. That was lovely. See, this is the kind of talent you will see if you go and purchase a ticket to see the Mr. Wheeler, Hayseed Dixie, or whatever incarnation he has. So, anyway,
you've been making.
How'd you get on?
I went over, kind of smoothed over, and kind of like I was on casters.
I
was so smooth. I went across over to the bar. I said, hello, and she said hello in a deeper voice than I had. I met her in a club down called the Old Logo. L-O-G-O Logo. L-O-G-O Logo.
That's where we're at.
Anyway,
I heard her voice and it sounded so wrong when I worked out that she had a massive dong.
I don't know. Anyway, I'd just like to say that for many years, that little bit of eye contact and kind of interpersonal connection, she came to see us in different places in Hamburg, and it was a pleasure and very nice. Although I suspect that if you crossed her, because she had knuckles like I wouldn't believe, and a massive Adam's apple. I could knock your spark out and probably did Mai Tai and all the rest of it, but was very, very nice.
Mai Tai is the most alcoholic form of kung fu ever.
Anyway,
I have a question for you, John. And this is a question that I think I'm going to put towards anyone who is an artist we only seem to speak to artists who are involved in this. But this is a question. It's very serious. Have you ever shit yourself on stage?
This is the standing question now.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So there's different.
It sounds like a yes. There's a pause there. That wasn't straight. No.
There's different cultural ways to describe this experience. I think the Italians, I don't know what the direct translation is. Maybe you can tell me. They call it a dressed fart. Yes. Like a fart.
Una scoreggia vestita. Yes. A scoreggia vestita. Yes. Yeah.
I'm talking about old-fashioned Anglo-Saxon. My God, they're going to have to go in the bin moment.
Yes, they call this a Feuchtfurz in German, a moist fart. What we call it in East Tennessee is a sunflower, because as it looks like you've made a sunflower in your pants.
Wheeler, stop intellectualizing this. Have you or have you not shit yourself on stage?
There was a club called
This is the hard questions. This is the hard questions.
The Dame in Lexington, Kentucky in 2002. Now, I walked up on the stage, and it was a sold-out show, 500 capacity club. The place kind of like what I imagine the Boathouse would have been like to help 500 people, something like that. Real stuck-in, greasy place. So I walk up on the stage. We're sold out. It's a bunch of hillbillies. This is Lexington, Kentucky. This is when our second album had come out. We were all over the morning shows in America. Everybody had their Billy Bob teeth in. Some of them were not Billy Bob teeth. And I stepped up on stage. I tuned up my guitar, and I'm like, I'm ready to rock. I'm about to count the first song, and I think I'm going to do that one cheek squeak. Well, it was wearing a suit. And I'm like, I can't get through an hour and a half like this, even if it's only, 10 cc or something. I'm like, this ain't going to work. No. So now there was no backstage toilet. So I had to run off the stage, past some of the audience, into the public man's toilet, which was what you would expect in a club of that description.
Oh yeah.
So I push past guys. I'm being that dude. I got to play. You got to let me through. They just think I got to pee. Little do they know. I find myself a cubicle. It's got no door. I turn around. I got overalls on, right? What you call. Now, luckily my Hanes did catch everything. There wasn't a lot of it. So the underwear, what you call the pants, did catch it all. And it was a defined sunflower pattern. We'd been to a Mexican restaurant earlier that day, and it showed. And it was beginning to feel like it, too, because we're about 2 minutes into the experience here now. So I drop, and I realize there's no toilet roll in here. Oh. So I was like, well, goodbye socks. So I pull off my socks. I wiped up with my socks. There was no bin, so I just tossed it in the bowl, tried to flush. And as I was running back out to get to the stage, I could see that the bowl was about to overflow, but it had not gone down. So there was my pants and my 2 pairs of socks, soiled as they were, in the toilet, clogging it up. And I went back up on stage, counted off first song, played that set free balling. Ohne Unterhosen.
And
that's the only time in my life I've ever played a free balling set. But my mandolin player had something similar happen to him the second show we did at Glastonbury in 2005. We'd walked on the Avalon tent stage after having opened the main stage earlier that day. And he looks at me as I'm about to count first song. He looks around me and goes, and off he ran to the side over to the portaloo. And I was like, oh dear. And Jake's like, what? And I said, Sonnenblumen im Hose gemacht. He's like, oh. I said, we're going to have to just kill a couple of minutes here.
But at the end of the day, it was a magnificent show. It's just
actually the one at the Dame was a good one. It's the only show I've ever played without underwear in my entire career.
And it was a good show.
I had a good reason.
I've done it a lot.
Yeah, well, that might be.
You asked the question. I gave you an honest answer.
No. I'm saying that might be something for the future. Maybe if you're feeling like this is going to be a tough gig, time to lose the underwear.
The Underhosen did their job, didn't they? They protected the outer garments. They did their job. They did their job.
There's a David. Man, I saw this guy.
The ancients weren't stupid when they invented that shit. They weren't. They knew what they were doing.
There's a hillbilly country guy named David Allen Coe, and I watched him play a show one time in Nashville in like 1989. He was standing on stage. He had this white nudie suit on, like nudie's like really tight.
This was where this question came from. Yeah, this is where the question, because
Nudie was the name of the guy who made the suits.
No, all right, but the white thing, because we asked the initial question. Because I had a recurring nightmare, which we mentioned in the previous podcast, of having white trousers on and shitting myself on stage. That was my recurring nightmare. That's what the question. Go on with the story. Sorry to interrupt you.
Cole was up there. He had on the white nudie suit, and he's rocking out, and he's playing his first song, and he turns around to face the drummer, and there was a sunflower. Yeah, and I don't think he ever noticed it. And he played the whole rest of the set like that. And the whole, you can hear the crowd as one go, I mean, it was just, yeah. In fact,
would be I'd be mortified of embarrassment. I would never show my face again. I would burn all my instruments, and I would never eat another solid food.
If he did know, he didn't let on. He passed it off like it wasn't no thing.
Well, that's show business, though, isn't it?
It is. I mean,
that's professionalism.
I was thinking also, one of the problems that I have with playing with no underwear is, if you think my beard is long and scraggly, I was thinking at one time.
Is it like peeling? Is it like peeling the octopus off the side of the tank kind of thing? Like sticking to your leg.
Exactly. And I had a song about it. Yeah, I'm gonna stick your sweaty balls. I'll stick it to my leg. But I was also, the other problem is, I guess I could just shave it more. But I was thinking about starting a band called Dread Sack. And everybody wears shorts and they have dreadlocks hanging down like past their knees. And I got a song already. We got the dreadlock balls, the netty dread sack. Got the dreadlock balls, got the netty sack. I don't know. I mean, maybe Booga can play guitar in this band.
I actually think that's actually defined as a pant moustache.
Exactly.
What you're talking about is what the sophisticates among us would call a pant moustache.
That's what I was thinking.
And it was something that you used to find a lot in 70s porn, before a lady would find her taking her underwear to defenestrate it. But yes, a pant moustache.
Defenestrate. There's a great word.
You're welcome.
Defenestrate. That's an excellent word.
Out the window they would go, and then the guy would come in with the pizza, whilst the other one was fixing the washing machine, and you would see her large pant moustache be revealed to the world to be more like a ZZ Top tribute band. And
then they wonder why men of a certain age can't find certain bits of female anatomy, because we didn't know where it was, because we never saw it.
Saw it exactly.
We just saw like the top of Jimi Hendrix's head. That's all we could see. I mean,
all you had was a very refined sense of smell.
I remember
touch. I mean, there's a certain feel, you know.
I remember when we used to do swimming at school in the 5th year.
This is why they voted for Trump, by the way. The moral decay amongst us liberals.
Do you know because I started playing a lot of Latin kind of Cuban-y electric guitar, but in a Mark Rebo kind of thing, wanting to do something like that, and so. One of the band names I thought was the Libtardos. Los Libtardos was one. Well, I thought it might be quite good. But anyway,
I like that actually. That's
Los
good.
Libtardos. I mean, embrace it. Let's own it. But
I'll play keys in Los Libtardos. Yeah.
I will play a single maraca.
Well, name the first record. Name the first record. Buy this album. Own the Libs.
Yeah.
You know. I mean, hey.
Cool.
I mean, I'm currently right now. I mean, I'm so locked down with my family. We all have so much contact exposure to each other right now. I'm working on a triptych right now. I like triptychs in art. You know, we have 3 pictures or whatever. I'm working on a triptych of albums right now. The first album is going to be called, and I just asked the people at the record label about this today. Can I title it this? First album is going to be called "Things That Piss My Daughter Iona Off." And it's stuff like, you know, moving to Germany, not buying her a cat, walking around the house singing songs about her. Things that piss my daughter Freya off, asking her to get up in the morning for school, telling her to eat her broccoli. Things that piss my wife Catherine off. That's album number 3. The first song was going to be Making This Album, ever mentioning sex. I mean, you know, important stuff like that. So I'm working on a triptych album of just things that piss off my other 3 family members. If that doesn't work, we've got this dog named Daphne, and I'll follow it up with the
what kind of bloody
fourth album called "Things That Piss Off My Dog Daphne." Don't let my daughter Iona name the dog Daphne.
Oh,
it's a
I see.
Black Cocker Spaniel.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
It's funny.
Of course, it's a Cocker Spaniel. They're more British than British.
No.
I named one of my tapeworm Daphne, but that was a long story. Anyway.
Oh, mate, did you have to defenestrate it yourself?
Straight out the window it went.
It's a good job it had a big finester.
It did. So because you two,
yeah,
you're in Saarbrücken and John's in Heidelberg, and all I've been seeing in the well, until you actually dig deeper into it, but I've been seeing there's been a lot of reticence in Germany about the vaccinations, especially the AstraZeneca one. How are you finding it on the ground there?
We're so far down the list of people who are going to receive the vaccine. I hadn't paid it much attention. They're basically vaccinating everybody else first. I mean, I'm a middle-aged guy with no pre-existing health conditions. So, you know, I will say this, it does, at least on the surface, appear that both the UK and the US have done a better job of wheeling out the vaccines than they have in Germany. I don't know what the bleeding holdup is here, man. I really don't.
Well, I don't. There is a bit of I don't know why there's this mistrust of the AstraZeneca one. The people don't agree with, there was a lot of criticism of how it was developed and how the testing was done, which, you know, because it's the Swedish stroke Oxford vaccine, we don't get to hear about. This is why 4 out of 5 AstraZeneca vaccines here are remaining unused. There's a lot of reluctance to take it. Everybody wants the biotech one, which is the German one, which there's apparently that now they've got to look into how they react with the different variants. I mean, I think they should open it up. If you refuse an AstraZeneca, there should be a waiting list of people who are desperate for a vaccine to just go and take it rather than waste it. Because once they open it, they open it. You know, they only spend so much time.
Well, yeah, there's a shelf life on it too. I mean, the thing is, what I've heard, is that they weren't sure about the effectiveness on it on certain age ranges and stuff. But I mean, what are they sure of about this pandemic at this point? I mean, we're we've had a year of locking things down, and I'm certainly not one of these people who's screaming, open everything up. But that said, I mean, what does it appear that the mortality rate is on this virus? I mean, 1% at best. There comes a point where we have to start asking what kind of collateral damage we have from locking kids up in the houses, and we're gonna lose a whole generation of people if we're not careful here.
Well, the schools in England, the schools are opening up on Monday. You're going to start seeing it. But the vaccination numbers here are very high. I have had 3 weeks ago today. I had the AstraZeneca.
I'm really delighted you've had that, and I would. But if I was offered it, I would take it.
I'd take it yesterday. Somebody give me the opportunity.
I have had the corona recently, so I presumably I have antibodies right now. So,
but I do have to say there is a side effect with it.
Yeah,
because I'm down to just 2 penises and 3 testicles because one of them just fell off, and 2 of my testicles went. So
probably make most of your fish happier.
Well, I've had to rebalance. My inner ear balance has gone a bit off because there's a lot of weight that's gone. The equator's shifted, as it were. But
this was John. Can I put this into context? This was the most civilized podcast we've ever done. We've talked about politics. We've talked about different cultures. This is the most educated. Normally, it's just a bunch of filth from start to finish. And I was enjoying.
Hello there. Hi there.
And just sunflower stories the whole time.
And then there's this kind of gravitational pull towards the filth I can feel, which is fine. There is a place for that.
Light and darkness. It's light and darkness.
Light shade.
It's like fire and ice, and I'm like tepid water.
Yeah. Well, my younger daughter Freya gets it. I mean, she thinks fart jokes are funny. My older daughter Ona and my wife, they just don't get it. They don't understand why if I walk in the room and go, "Oh, I got gas," and Freya laughs, and they don't understand it.
So if you farted and it was a particularly loud and vicious one, and you went, "My God, that came out with its boots on," they wouldn't laugh.
Freya would.
Okay,
Freya would probably return fire. I mean, I was telling a story about. No. The first time I went out to drinking with a couple of, they had these shooting clubs in Germany, right? Like pistol shooting clubs, Schützenverein. And you go to you shoot targets from 50 meters, and So when we first moved here, I thought that'd be a good way to go meet all the guys who are going to fix whatever I got that breaks. Whether it's my car, or my washing machine, or my roof leaks, whatever. I'm going to meet the blokes who are going to work on that at the Schützenverein. Plus, I kind of like shooting pistols. Growing up a hillbilly, I'm a bit of a trailer trash liberal elitist here. So I joined the Schützenverein. And the first night we went out and had a Stammtisch afterwards at this little pub down in Heidelberg. I go in the toilet, and the guy who's standing beside me at the urinal, he kind of goes and emits a little fart while he's peeing. I mean, it happens. I kind of glanced at him, and I could see he looked embarrassed. And I went, "Ha, gut gemacht. Ich habe wieder das Feuer." And he ran out of the room afraid. What I said was, good, well done. Ich habe wieder das Feuer. I returned the fire.
He might have thought this was like a mating ritual.
He ran out. So I went back out to the table, and I explained to the guys from the Schützenverein in my rather limited Deutsch what had just taken place. And it was kind of the fulcrum, because about half the table looked like, and the other half slapped me on the back and thought it was the funniest thing. But and it was right then that I realized, which of these crew I was going to drink with, and which of them I probably wouldn't invite to the barbecue.
I don't think that's fair. I think people are sensitive about these things. I don't think that's entirely fair. I don't think you should totally discount the guys that aren't as confident about these bodily functions. Perhaps there's just one aspect, I don't know. If I had something I didn't know, I'd be little one's crept out and then he says something. I don't know. Maybe he didn't misunderstood. I don't know. It's kind of, I've already got my cock in my hand. I'm standing there fucking, and somebody else with a cock in hand. I don't want to have a conversation with them. I don't want any contact at all. I contact, conversation, verbal, nothing. I go, I wash my hands, and I do that shuffle around where, you know.
You have to reel it back in, put it back in this holster.
Maybe it was growing up as an only child. Maybe I had the luxury of privacy, and so I.
I'm an only child too, though, man.
Yeah, maybe I don't know why.
So, Booga, I don't know. Maybe this is actually the dividing factor. Is are you the type of a guy who sort of strikes up a bit of a joking conversation with the bloke who's pissing next to you? Are you the type of guy who looks straight ahead at the advertisement on the wall and pretends like you're interested?
What you must remember in my this exterior of jovial, mostly profane, as I fucking hate most people, and the last thing I want to do is to strike up a conversation when I'm in. But those gigs where you have to use the toilets the same as the audience, I dread that, because somebody will talk to me and I'm too busy concentrating on not getting my shoes wet.
Well, now that I've gotten older as well, I got to get relaxed enough to have a good pee. It used to be easy. I used to have a lot of pressure. I mean, I could hit a target on the wall 10 feet away. Now it's like glute.
John,
I went to the doctor and asked about it. He said, "Welcome to being middle-aged."
I'm sorry.
Did he put his finger up your bum? Did he check your prostate?
He did. Yeah.
Well, that was just at the shooting gallery. That's why he didn't. But both of you have something in common.
Oh God.
Which you've just hit, which is the point. You've both heard me urinate and gone, my God, what's wrong with you? Yeah. Because I do. I remember going to your house for a meal, John, and at the end of the evening, I must use the facilities. And as I wandered out of the facilities, you went, my God, Booga, you piss like a horse. And
I think he's got, I don't know if you've got like a 50 cal knob or something, because it's just the bore of it. It's just the sound it makes. It's like the stream. It's not a stream. So, and it goes on for hours. I remember once we were doing a TV show. I
was glad that we'd invested in the high quality porcelain.
I'm sure. I'll strip the enamel off anything. We were at a TV studio, Teddington Lock, in the dressing room, and we're going to call you in a minute. And he says, I need a wee. And Booga's a fucking hooligan. And they had a shower cubicle. It wasn't even a toilet, shower cubicle. So he pulls the curtain aside, and it's all nicely furnished. It looks like a show home. And he stands outside, and he does this monstrous piss. And I'm thinking, I don't want to be caught doing this. It's too embarrassing, because there's going to be like a runner coming in to get us any minute. And he starts pissing. It's loud. And it goes on and on. And I went, are you taking the piss or something?
Well, I'm part English, part African, part dromedary. It's
how much you hold a lot of liquid. Maybe it's just the size of your organs and bladders and stuff. Because Graham, our sound engineer, he's tall. He's probably 6'2" or 3", but he probably weighs 40 kilos wet through, doesn't he? He's very, very skinny.
And he pisses
every 10 minutes. He kind of he drinks a glass of water, goes for a piss, goes, it's kind of, I don't know. You can't.
But it's something that you two share. You could form a little club.
Well, I have heard you. And it shocks me how long that goes on for. But you're always drinking water, aren't you? You drink a lot of water all the time.
I don't drink a lot of water.
So you have, you're retaining it all, and then it all comes out. I'm sure it's very healthy. Cleans your kidneys out.
That you should be doing some of those BBC homeschooling videos when he just said that. He drinks a lot of water and then it comes out. That's module number 5, human biology. And then sex chat. If a lady asks you to, no, don't do that one. That's So are you, John, are you settling in? Do you feel that this is home?
Man, it's difficult to answer that because we moved down here in October, and then I took off to start a tour at the beginning of February. And then when I got back, everything's pretty much been this time last year. Yeah. So really, I only had about 3 months on the ground here before I had to take off on a tour. And when I got back from that tour, everything's pretty much been locked down ever since.
Yeah.
So I haven't really had much of an opportunity to really get involved with the place. I mean, also I got stuck in Britain for 9 weeks. I don't know if I told y'all.
I remember.
I told you about it, but
yeah.
Well, because I've had British citizenship for a while, but to get a British passport required me to send off to the passport office in Britain my application and my U.S. passport, which meant that I wouldn't be able to leave the country. Right. And they say for a renewal, you can go up to Peterborough or Liverpool or I think Edinburgh, but you can go to one of like 3 places and you can pay them some money and you can get it done that day. That's for a renewal, not for a first passport. A first time passport is something different. You got to send it off with a bunch of information, birth certificates of your grandma and a urine sample. I had to exhume the woman. I mean, it was, extensive.
Yes. Yeah.
And you got to wait. They said between 3 to 6 weeks, during which time they're holding all of your travel documents. So I had never gotten around to getting a British passport because I didn't have that kind of window of time that I wanted to plug up that the band wouldn't be able to work if a gig came up or something. But this tour was supposed to run from the last 2 days of February up through the first week of April, at which time Catherine and the girls were going to come back over for 2 weeks and hang out with her parents. And we were going to get together a week before the tour and do some rehearsals and stuff in Warrington, where we usually go because our sound man lives there and it's cheap Motel 6. And we know a pub owner lets us go in during the day and rehearse for free. It's a cheap town. Anyways, so I went up there. The first day I got there, I thought, this leaves me like 8 weeks. That'd be plenty of time to get the passport. I can finally get this done. Walked into the Warrington post office, did the check and sent all my stuff off. We got a week into the tour. Corona happens, tour gets canceled. I mean, it all ramped up very quickly. We went from having, a sold out show in Newcastle where we had like a 6% no show rate, which is pretty much average. Pretty much every show you do, between sort of 5-6% of the people that buy tickets don't turn up for whatever reason. They can't get a babysitter, they forget it, they get sick, whatever. And we had all agreed previously if the no-show rate got above 20%, that would be where we, no matter what the venue said, we would just call it. We would say we can't do this because if more than a fifth of our audience, rightly or wrongly, if more than a fifth of our audience don't feel they're safe to come to our show, we can't take their money. It's just not right. So the following night in Leeds, we had like a 14% no-show, and then in Manchester on the Saturday night, we had a 27% no-show. That's how fast it ramped up. Academy 2, and I called my booking agent the next morning and I said, that was a 27% no-show rate last night, man. That's almost a third of the ticket buyers. He went, yeah, call it. We're calling it. And I said, okay. He said, call the airlines. And I got my guys on the last plane that was leaving Manchester back to America to place all the flights. But then here I am sitting there in the UK, no passports, no travel documents. And I don't live there anymore.
But didn't you still have your American passport you could travel with?
No, that's what I'm saying. I had to send it off with the application.
Yeah.
And of course, because all the Corona stuff is happening, I can't get anybody on the phone. I tried calling the U.S. Embassy, and of course, they're jammed to the walls of people who have bigger problems than me. So I couldn't get a hold of any of them. When I finally did get somebody at the U.S. Embassy, what they told me was, well, we could do a passport renewal of your existing U.S. passport, but that would cancel the one that you've got, which means that when the home office goes to check, you will have sent them a canceled passport.
Yeah.
Anyway, let me just say, I think
this sucks ass. I got stuck there for a while. It was great.
With summer coming and spring coming, late spring coming, and if things open up, I think you and your girls, the spring explodes here, as you know. It's going to be in Germany, the weather and stuff. I think it's much more an attractive place to be, I think.
Well, I mean, where we're living right here, I mean, I wish you could have come over and see it. We're not actually that far apart from each other. I think it's.
I know, but then all these things. I mean, I spent January with the
curfews. Yeah. I know. But I was going to say we've got this 1932 Jaeger house, like a hunting lodge kind of thing. It's about a mile and a half out of Heidelberg proper, but sitting right on the edge of the Odenwald. So I mean, that's been what's actually saved us. I mean, we got the girls a spaniel as a bit of a relocation package for moving to a different country. And that's what we've spent a lot of our time doing. We got some mountain bikes. I'm actually in better physical shape than I've been in a very long time because what we're doing every day is going out and hiking up and down the mountains and taking the dog for walks and riding bicycles up and down the hills. And
brilliant.
So, I mean, actually, I'm from a health point of view, I'm feeling pretty good. But from a socialization point of view, we've realized that even though we love each other and we're a family, you can't spend all of your waking hours with just the same 3 other people. That's not healthy, man. It's insane.
No.
Well, look, kids, on that note, our Zoom time is getting to the end.
Yeah.
John, will you come on this again if we if we ask you to?
I'd love to. I don't have any idea what your audience is like, and I hope I haven't bored the teetotal
neither do we.
out of them.
Listen. We don't get anything for this. You know, they can take it or leave it. And if they did want
to send a donation, it's very welcome. And if anyone wanted to sponsor us, that would even more be welcome, because
also what people should do is press subscribe and leave a review on one if you like it on like on iTunes or something. That would help us as well to get the profile up and to get the podcast known. And go
on to Spotify or iTunes or Amazon and share around some links to Ezio and Hayseed Dixie music. Share it around with your buddies.
Yeah, and
if you hear one of the songs you like, share it around. There is my John Wheeler solo music as well. I mean, I don't make much money off of it. Most of that's just something I do keep myself interested. But
you know, and also to the listener, if he's still alive, they're still alive. If she's still alive, if anyone's still alive, if you have any questions or anything like that, just fire us a message.
And if there's anything you'd like us to discuss or anything about anything, well, we're happy to do it. You know. And what should we call
to us? Come onto our Twitter feeds, and when those dumbass trolls come on and call us libtards, you argue with them for a while. We're kind of sick arguing with them. Jump in there on our behalf. You know, don't feel like you're overstepping. If you want to jump in there on a couple of those American trolls from Ohio who will steal your hubcaps after they rape your sister, jump on in and argue with that dumbass for a little while. I'm sick of it.
There you have it.
All right.
From his mouth to yours.
And what should we call this podcast? What was that thing about the sunflower in your trousers? That's oh no. I said goodbye to the socks. That's the one. That's the for the podcast.
Farewell to footwear.
Farewell to the socks. All right.
Sayonara socks with John Wheeler from Hayseed Dixie. John, thank you for
everything. You so much.
Thank
you for your time. Kids, all right. Okay, bye-bye.
And you all take care. Bye-bye.
Bye. So that's Hello?
Hey man, yeah, I'm still here. Yeah, I was gonna say it's anytime you want to come over, man. We've got a spare bedroom, we've got a nice house, and the other thing is I've got a garage you can stick your car in. Nobody can see into our yard. Even if there was a restriction, nobody's gonna if you and your gal came over or something, nobody's gonna say anything. There's nobody here to
I know, but I think I've been so conscious of doing things properly. I'm gonna stick with it. And then
If he breaks the rules at any point, that's it.
I mean, I came over with the new variant from Britain. I came over with it, and fortunately didn't give it to anybody.
He will be crystal mething up your house.
We've had it twice, and Iona just had to have this test today. The results of which I've been glancing at my phone intermittently. They were supposed to send me an email about it, and the head teacher just sent me an email saying, "What did they say?" And I'm like, "Well, they haven't said anything." So let me get off of this. I'm gonna have to try to call the doctor's office. See if
I was going to ask you.
I don't think she's got it. What it is that she's been going to what they call note betrayal, where it's actually the emergency care. It's supposed to be people who have to work.
My daughter goes to that.
German. Yeah. Well, because her German's not brilliant, she's still learning. They're letting her go to it as well, just so she's got some contact with other German kids and they can talk. You know, that's the best way for her to learn. But whenever any of the kids who are in that get a positive result, or anybody in their family does, they got to test the whole school. So that's what it was. We don't think she's got it. And she said that she's pretty sure she knows who the kid was, and it's not somebody that she's ever even hanging out with. But they got to do
I was sure I didn't have it, and I needed a negative test to get through the tunnel with the car. And I went to Stansted, where they did me one of those nostril tests, and I was negative. And that night, I got symptoms.
So the test wasn't accurate.
The test wasn't accurate. Not only that, it convinced me that it was just a normal cold. You know, I thought, well, that must be a normal cold because it's just been tested. So I got in the car and drove to Germany. Yeah. You know,
Catherine had a false negative a while back. Yeah. I mean, she had the classic symptoms, had a fever for a couple of days, and then lost her sense of taste and smell for almost a month. She's still not completely recovered it back, which is kind of handy because it means that I can buy her the cheap wine and she can't tell the difference. Before, she was always a total wine.
How did you get it? Did you catch it from her? Did you catch?
I think so, but nobody ever tested me because she got
yeah.
I mean, I know I had it back in March too. At the end of our tour, my sound man and my merch guy both tested positive, both lost their taste and smell, all that. But I never had a fever, and I was stuck down in Cornwall in a guest cottage that one of my friends in Cambridge let me use kindly because all of his bookings had canceled anyway. I went down there for a month, but I kept calling trying to get a test, and they kept saying, "Do you have a fever?" And I said, "No," and they said, "Well, then we can't test you." So I've never been tested. No. I think I've had it twice, but I can't prove it.
Yeah. Right, this is about to cut off. So, John, I'm going to say goodbye.
Right. See you then.
Bye, man.
I'll see you soon. All right. All of you take care. Speak to you soon.
All right, mate.
Cheers, Buster.
See you then.
Bye, John.